What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, where you'll notice we're in a slightly different location. Today, I'm at Capital One Arena ahead of the Warriors game tonight in town to take on the Wizards. We will get an update a little bit later on whether or not Steph Curry is playing tonight. Curry working his way back from injury, but big crowd expected here at Capital One. And actually, that game will be on Bloomberg 99.1 tonight. We are here, but the game will be over on Bloomberg 99.1. Maryland kicking off their season tonight as college basketball gets going. That's coming up. Pre-game coverage at 6:30 here on the Team 980. But it is, of course, a Victory Monday. That is the most important thing that we are going to be talking about and how we will spend almost the entirety of our show today, starting with...
It's time to get the breakdown started. First up, 10 observations.
And just boom, put it right on the ground.
It's First and 10. Number 1.
The Commanders straight up, flat out, handled their business yesterday. And I mean that in a very literal sense. Not only are they 7-2, first time they've been that since 1996, but that was a very business-like win in general. It was a professional win. The Giants are not good. They're a team that if you got up on them early, Brandon Tierney talked about it with us last week, they would probably roll over and die a little bit. And credit to the Giants, they didn't fully die. But there was never a point that the Commanders were really stressed. That's not to say there weren't points in the game that were stressful, but realistically, the Commanders were not stressed for basically the entirety of that game. They were able to get out to a lead. They were able to hold that lead. And there was no point in the second half where the Giants had the ball and a chance to take the lead. And that comes down to the absolutely just savage, nearly 6-minute drive that ends in a field goal to get them to 27. Giants come down, credit to them, score to make it 27-22, and they never get the ball back. And had they, it would have been because the Commanders decided to score a touchdown and put the game out of reach. Instead, they kneel on the ball 3 times at the end of the game. This was a business handling type of win, and it is really fun because this is the type of win that you've come to expect from this team. And it is the exact opposite of how any of us that have followed this team for the decade now that I have been, basically, or the previous 15 years before I got here, basically going back to the last time this team was a Super Bowl contender under Joe Gibbs. It's been that long. So for many of you listening, your literal entire whole lives, that you could rely on the Commanders to do exactly what they are supposed to do. And they did yesterday, and they deserve credit for that, especially considering they did not have perhaps their most business-like, most reliable player. Number 2, please.
Number 2.
They ran the ball for nearly 150 yards without Brian Robinson. This run game is legit, and they probably would have pushed... I don't want to say they would have rushed for 200 yards, but it would have been more with Robinson. That's pretty clear. Like some of the McNichols and Eckler carries that didn't go very far, which ultimately is why Chris Rodriguez comes in, and we'll talk about him more as we go here. But why C-Rod had such a big day yesterday, because they found the back that was best, and the guy that was best was the guy that was most like the guy that was missing. And B-Rob is an even better version than Chris Rodriguez, and he's a more versatile guy, so it could have opened up other things in their offense. But even with that said, Rodriguez, 11 carries, 52 yards, 4.7 per carry. And there was a play in this game that I think just perfectly kind of illustrates how nasty this run game is. That the mix of personnel, design, and everything just being maximized. And it came to a point where the run game had stalled a little bit. Commanders got in that huge drive in the fourth quarter. They started actually with 2 one-yard runs. That was it. They were in bad down and distances. They got to a 3rd and 9, and that's when Jaden just fades, then finds Eckler wide open. Eckler chips, gets out, nobody picks him up. Jaden finds him. It's like a 30-something yard gain. All of a sudden, it's 1st and 10. They run the ball again with Jeremy McNichols. 1-yard gain, 2nd and 9. Yikes, man. We got 2 one-yard carries in a row. What's going on here? How can we open up this run game a little bit? And this play, 2nd and 9, 7:23 to go in the ball game, is the kind of thing that Cliff has in his literal bag. They run an RPO where the pass option is a bubble to Diami, who has been killer in those situations this year. So they run Diami in motion. Eyes are going to him. The corner follows him. Some of the contained players stay outside because the threat is there of that pass option. And then on the run side of it, I got to talk to Logan to see if there's a different name for this. I'm going to call it counter trap, where Andrew Wiley blocks down on the defensive end. So you got the old Vince Lombardi. We got a seal here. And then John Bates fakes towards the defensive end or the outside linebacker, the edge player, on that side, and then gets to the second level. So that edge player is like, sick, I'm free. And here comes Sam Cosmi coming around, looping, and smacks the ever-living hell out of this dude. There's your other Lombardi, and a seal there. And you got 8 yards for Jeremy McNichols untouched into the second level. We got counter trap, where it's we got a counter one way, Jeremy McNichols faking coming back. Like, it is a nasty play design. And at a point where the run game had stalled, they just kept trying different stuff. And it's really, really impressive how they continue to do that stuff. Maybe you call it a power trap. I don't know. We got pullers. We got wham players. We got trap players. We got an RPO attached to it. All I know is it got 8 yards, got them to 3rd and 1. McNichols then picks up the first down, and they continue to march down the field until they get a field goal. And that is the kind of play that this team will make. Cliff does a tremendous job of finding whatever the right thing is, and that actually leads us to the final part of our first half of our 1st and 10.
Number 3.
Which is the situational football dominance of the Washington Commanders. What a sentence. Oh, my God. If you had asked me 3 years ago if I would ever say that phrase, I might say no. Things have changed a little bit. Thank goodness. And I give credit to Dan Quinn in a major way on this because they practice this stuff. Logan has talked about on Take Command that when he was with Dan in Atlanta, they practiced more situational football than any other stop in his career, including when he was with Kyle Shanahan, including when he was with Mike Shanahan here. Like real professional coaches who know what they're doing and have been good in those situations on some level historically. Kyle, I know, he's got some notable not ideal situational football things, so I'm not going to let that slide. But the point is, DQ practice it more than anyone else. And it shows because, as Dan calls them, the winning time plays, they make them again and again and again. And I think the bigger part of that, or just as big of a part as the players' preparation, is the coaches. I cannot believe Brian Daboll screwed up that end-of-game situation as badly as he does. Washington runs the ball, gets 1 yard. It's 2nd and 9 with like 48 seconds left. Call timeout, Daboll. What are you doing? Like, then Washington's going to run the ball again. You get another stuff. Now it's 3rd and, even say they get 5 yards, like it's 3rd and short. They're probably going to run it again, make you use your timeouts. Now you get the ball back above the 2-minute warning, and you still have the 2-minute warning to work with, obviously, as you get back on offense. That's a good situation if you can stop the run. Instead, the Giants let it run all the way down, and Cliff was ready for this. Cliff called a play as if to say, hey, if you're not going to call timeout, we're calling a pass here because if the ball falls incomplete, the clock stops anyway because of the 2-minute warning. It's a free pass. 42 yards to Olamide Zaccheaus later. Bang, bang, bang. Commanders are in field goal range. They're able to run out the clock, kick the field goal, and that pretty much is game over. Actually, sorry, that was game over. That was when they ran out the clock. That wasn't on the longer field goal drive. So that's excellent. The end of half where they get the ball back with like 6 minutes left and drive it all the way down and then hit the TD to Terry. Part of the reason that takes so long is because they get penalties and backed up and then have to overcome that, but they do. They're just ready for every situation, and they make winning time plays. And the thoroughness where they have not really been caught out situationally at all this year. Like, watch the NFL on any given Sunday. Watch every other game and watch how many coaches mess this stuff up. And between Dan and shout out to Dave Gardy, who they hired out of the league office for, in part, this specific reason because he was a master of situations. He helped design some of the rules. And they're like, what if he worked for us? And Josh Harris was like, cool, write the check. Now they're the best situational team, arguably, in the NFL. Good stuff. Good stuff. Love that. Don't waste time score situations, and the Commanders not only just don't mess them up, they maximize them in this game, while the Giants just absolutely they did a bad job. I'm not going to use any analogies. I'm just going to They were bad. They were very, very bad. All right, when we get back, the back half of our 1st and 10, including some remarkable numbers about Jaden Daniels and just how well the Commanders' offensive line played yesterday, and a few thoughts on the Commanders' defense and the not as bright spots from the game. 1st and 10, and then we take your calls coming up on a Tell the Truth Monday at the bottom of the hour, 4:30. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980, and we're live from Capital One Arena, where the Wizards will host the Warriors tonight. Dave Johnson joins us 90 minutes from now on set here at Capital One Arena. Then you can hear Dave and Glenn over on Bloomberg 99.1 tonight as we have Maryland Hoops here on the Team 980. Let's keep rolling, though, with our 1st and 10 observations from the Commanders' 27-22 win over the New York Giants.
Number 4.
Jaden Daniels in this game, per Next Gen Stats, completed every deep pass that he threw. There were only 3 of them, but he was 3 of 3 for 91 yards and a touchdown on passes over 20 yards in the air. Shots are hard to come by in the NFL, especially when you have teams that know we cannot give them up. And so when you get opportunities, you better hit them. And it requires a ton of patience. It requires a lot of, hey, we got it called here. Oh, it's not there. Check it down. Oh, it's not called here. Oh, it's not there. The deep one, but the intermediate is. Let's hit that and get a nice little chunk that way. Oh, there it is. Got to throw it right now. And so you always have to be aggressive in throwing it while also understanding that you can't throw it all the time. And Jaden finds that balance beautifully. And then the hard part is obviously the most difficult part is, can you complete it? The ball's farther away. If I were told you have $100, where do you want me to place the target? Would you want it right in front of your face, or would you want it 40 yards away? You probably want it right in front of your face. And so the efficiency that he shows on the deep ball is such a huge factor in this offense, because it also keeps them, the opponent, from overloading the box and allows the success in the run that we just talked about and all that kind of stuff. Overall, just how valuable and how accurate has he been? How above average? Daniels has generated 25.5 expected points added on deep passes this season, third most in the NFL behind Rodgers and Sam Darnold. Dang. That is a massive, massive number. Thanks again to Next Gen Stats for that. And for this.
Number 5.
Helps when you have offensive line play that is high quality. How good was the Commanders' offensive line yesterday? Actually, Anthony, I'm going to hit you with a pop quiz. I don't think you're ready for this. That's the nature of a pop quiz, unless you've been looking at the rundown where all my notes are. What percent of the Commanders what percent of the Commanders' snaps did the Giants blitz on yesterday?
22.
Felt pretty low, right?
Yeah.
What if I told you it was 60?
60%?
According to Next Gen Stats, the Giants' defense blitzed on 60% of dropbacks, their highest blitz rate in a game this season yesterday. They generated 5 pressures, 0 sacks on those 25 dropbacks, which is just a 20% pressure rate. Or so 25 total dropbacks. 1, they didn't drop back a ton. 2, they generated 5 pressures on 25 dropbacks. That's 20%, despite blitzing 60% of Jaden's dropbacks. Azeez Ojulari finished with 2 pressures on the day, was the Giants' only defender with multiple pressures. He might not be a Giant by the weekend. Dexter Lawrence was held without a pressure on 19 pass rushes. It is the first time this season that Lawrence has been held without a pressure. I am not the world's greatest offensive line expert, Anthony Haney, but I have been covering football for a long time, and I feel very comfortable saying that's pretty good.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. That's how good. So the same O-line, by the way, that had all that success that we talked about running the football, also protected Jaden Daniels. And those things go together, right? The protections, the play calls. Cliff did an outstanding job yesterday, and it's a joy to watch their film. It's a joy to watch them play on TV. It's a joy to watch them play in person. It's a joy to watch this offense play. They have consistently just been masterful all season long. They are literally historically great in any number of categories. They are the first team since they started keeping the stats in 1980 to be 11 of 11 during a season on 4th downs. Like, they're every down, every distance, through the air, on the ground, they're one of the best in football, and they're in Washington with Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury. What a time to be alive wearing burgundy and gold.
Number 6.
With that said, the defense. That is where things get not exactly, let's just say they're not historic. They're a heck of a lot better than they were earlier this year. But the Giants' offense totaled 148 yards on 27 designed runs against the Commanders on Sunday. They posted season highs in expected rushing yards, EPA per carry, and total yards before contact on designed runs. Additionally, ball carriers were contacted behind the line of scrimmage on a season-low 14.8% of design runs, but they accumulated negative rush yards over expected on those plays. So they were able to get further without making contact, but then you think based off of that, they would have actually gotten further on the plays, so the recovery was good from Washington. That was a lot of numbers. Here's the point. The Giants had a better rushing total yesterday, a better rushing output yesterday than they have against any other team this season. That is not ideal. I also think it was part of the game plan. I also just look at that and say the Giants know that they're going to have to run the football, that's where Washington is probably weaker. And if you're running the football against Washington instead of throwing the ball to Malik Neighbors, and I'm Joe Witt, I'm perfectly fine with that. Okay, cool. I don't think that you can drive 15 plays and not commit a stupid penalty or not lose your patience and pass the ball and take a sack. And you want to know what? They were right. Because I've been watching back the defensive tape, so I'm literally doing this play-by-play because I had a theory on this. It actually wound up being wrong. This was much more about the Giants and their inability to do stuff than it was the Commanders. But you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 play drive where the Giants only faced 1 second down. 1 second down, no third downs. 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, 1st and 10, 1st and 10, 1st and 10. But on that last 1st and 10, you want to know what they did? They fumbled, because Daniel Jones finally dropped back to pass. And then it took them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 plays to score. You know what's not going to happen? The Giants going on a bunch of 16-play drives. So if I'm Joe Witt, I'm like, go ahead. Our offense needs 5 seconds. Or if they want to take 5 minutes, they can do that. It is not ideal, but I do think it was on some level a strategic choice in terms of the aggressiveness to stop the run. And my experiment, my theory was that maybe after that 16-play drive that Joe Witt Jr. changed it up and started running heavier boxes. Nope. For one series he did. 8 in the box, 8 in the box, 7 in the box. On that, by the way, they did try to put the ball in Daniel Jones' hands more because it was an RPO on the first play, and they forced Jones to throw it. Luvu batted it down. They forced a zone read give on the second play, and then Chin had a pass break up on 3rd down when they had to throw it to Theo Johnson. So there they get 3 and out. They come out in the second half, 6 in the box, 7 in the box, 6 in the box, 7 in the box. There's 8 on the 4th and 1, then back to 7, 7, 7, 7. You get the point. They weren't overloading the box. They were like, fine, if you want to run it, run it. And they couldn't, because they're the New York Giants and they're only so good at it. So, yeah, the Giants had arguably their best pass or rushing day of the year based off all those numbers I read you earlier, but it wasn't like it was actually anything that was going to beat Washington, and that's kind of the point.
Number 7.
Because they don't give up explosive plays. And this is the difference in this game versus Chicago and some of the other games. I know they ultimately gave up more points in this game because in that last drive, they did give up chunk plays. And there was a couple, right? Jones had a zone read that went for 24. Like, they gave up a couple, but there's no 50-yarders. There's no long touchdowns in this game. And that actually will feed into number 8 as well. But if you just can keep the top on, especially a bad offense, eventually they're going to beat themselves. And if we're being blunt, there's a lot of bad offenses in the NFL. And I don't know, I haven't watched the tape yet. I don't know how good the Steelers are. Like, I don't know if you can do this against the Steelers. You might need to be a little more aggressive in stopping the run because Najee Harris is really good, and then you just hope that Russell Wilson has an off day throwing the deep ball to George Pickens. But, like, most offenses in the 2024 NFL, perfectly fine strategy. That brings us to number 8.
Number 8.
It's pretty clear that this team needs a number 1 corner long term. I've tried to be a Benjamin St. Juste truth sayer, and people hear what I say and take it to mean that I think Benjamin St. Juste is awesome. Benjamin St. Juste is not awesome. Benjamin St. Juste is frustrating because he's so close to being really good, but I've seen enough of Benjamin St. Juste over the course of his time here in Washington to know he's an average corner, which means when he faces Malik Neighbors, there's going to be some problems. With that said, some of the biggest stuff he gave up to Malik Neighbors wasn't really on him. There's that deep crossing route that he gave up in the 3rd quarter that it's cover 3. He's supposed to be deep into the outside. Now, does a better corner match that better and realize I'm good here and cut hard on that? Probably. Is Bobby Wagner supposed to be underneath that throw as an underneath player? Yes. Yes, he is. The Darius Slayton dig, I think, or curl later in the game, that's actually the one that I'm like, that's the one that kills you, is he just is too slow recognizing some of these routes. But here's my defense, if you will, of St. Juste and why I think he works in this defense and why they've been able to be so successful. He's not getting beat deep. He is straight up not getting beat deep. He would rather give up a 15-yard comeback route than get beat on a double move, and so he's not overreacting to that stuff, and that does not leave him exposed on the double moves that got him beat against, say, Jamar Chase earlier this year. You can win like that. Not against the best of the best of the best of the best, because they will go and take those 15-yard chunks and march down the field. But against the Giants, fine. If they can get an upgrade by this time tomorrow before the deadline, do it. 1,000% do it. But I think that is the kind of the reality of St. Juice. Is he going to give up more than he should? I would love to see him give up less, but he's going to fight, he's going to compete, and he's not going to give up explosive plays, and you can win like that.
Number 9.
Jeremy Chin, best game as a Commander. Quinn actually said that at his press conference an hour ago. He thought that was his best game. Dude was everywhere. 13 tackles, 7 solo, 2 tackles for loss, 1 PBU. I really don't understand some of the calls later in the game where I say I don't understand because I haven't gotten to them on film yet, where they stopped going some of the man-to-man stuff and letting Chin guard Theo Johnson because he was awesome. And they get some of the zone stuff that there's big holes in. But overall, excellent game from Jeremy Chin. And one more shout-out at the back end here.
Number 10.
Chris Rodriguez. Talk about staying ready. Everyone can say, "Oh, I got to stay ready." It's another thing to actually do it, to be involved. And I thought DQ told a really cool story at his presser today that he, being Rodriguez, saw the way that Jeremy McNichols prepared. And he was like, oh, that's what it means to be a backup and stay ready. And he took on that same attitude, persona, preparation, and he was ready for his moment. And there's a chance that he got called up from the practice squad and then wasn't really needed, and maybe he was going to play on special teams or whatever, but Brian Robinson would have been active. Instead, B-Rob doesn't make it through the pregame warm-up. They decide to go a different direction. And I still don't think that Chris Rodriguez was supposed to be as big a part of that game plan as he was. But he was their best back. So they rode the hot hand. Credit to the staff for doing so. Credit to Anthony Lynn. And then, of course, credit to Chris Rodriguez himself, a guy that has been through, I'm sure, a tough year, didn't anticipate being on the practice squad, but has stayed ready and then came in and did the damn thing. Well done, Chris Rodriguez. All right. That is our 1st and 10. 10 observations from a 27-22 Commanders win over the Giants. Your turn now on a Tell the Truth Monday. 301-230-0980. We take your calls next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Tell the Truth Monday on the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, do we have, if you could, the introduction for this segment? It is Tell the Truth Monday here on the Hoffman Show, which means it's time for this.
It's Tell the Truth Monday on the Hoffman Show.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth!
Call us now at 301-230-0980 to tell the truth about the Commanders.
You can't handle the truth!
Or hit the comment section at the Team 980 on YouTube.
All right, I'll be checking the comment sections as we are streaming live on YouTube, but let's get to the phones at 301-230-0980. It is a Tell the Truth Monday. So let's get to it, shall we? 301-230-0980, starting with Vic in Accokeek. Vic, what's up, dude?
What's up, Craig? Craig, I'm going to do this disclaimer before I get going. We may disagree. When I get off the phone, you may say that was dumb, but I'm going to say it for you just in case you do. I will say that this time I agree with about 98% of what you said. I can't even say I disagree with the 2%. This may have a different thought process on it. And what I'm telling the truth about is how we keep getting out leveraged at times in situational football when we shouldn't, particularly on some of the RPO stuff. It bothers me because on about the second series, we played the RPO well. It was a cover 3. I think Jeremy Chin was a flat player. He hits their receiver behind the sticks, and we get off the field on third down. Later in the first half, there's an RPO where Daniel Jones gets about 12 yards. We don't set the edge. We get outflanked just like we did in the Bears game. And in those situations, like you said, it's versus the Giants, but versus better teams. This is why I'm not sure yet if we can win a playoff game. Get to the playoffs, yes, but win a playoff game, I don't know. And I'll close with this. I laud the offensive coaches, the attention to detail, the accountability, the creativity, the step on the gas approach that we've seen in their performance. But I have questions about Joe Witt and what he's willing to live with as opposed to what we have on defense and what we had last year. There are too many times where we're in cover 3 and our linebackers don't sink to help Benjamin St-Juste. And we both agree Benjamin St-Juste is an average cornerback. But we don't sink into coverage to make those windows tighter. There were a couple of times where Bobby Wagner could have done that. A couple of times when Frankie Louvu could have done it.
Okay, Vic, I'm going to stop you there to ask you a question. How is that on Joe Witt, and how is that him settling?
Okay, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you said that. Now, the accountability and the repetition and the attention to detail in drills and team and
how many practices have you been to?
I haven't been to any, but I play.
Okay, Vic, this is why I hate your calls. I'm just going to be honest. This is why I hate Anthony. Can you mute him for a second? Because he's just going to keep talking over me, and I hate that too. This is why I hate your calls. You actually do know football. Your application of that knowledge is nonsensical. You are not at practice. And yes, there are times in this game where they're in cover 3, for instance, and the linebackers do need to drop. But maybe they're not because they've been coached to be more aggressive towards the run fits, and they're willing to make Daniel Jones make difficult throws. Once he proves you can do them, you mix it up a little bit. But the idea that Joe Witt is accepting of this when literally every week at the podium he gets up, no matter how well they play, and says, I'm not satisfied, I want better, that the trajectory of this defense has been up the entire year, just completely diminishes and derails your argument. Like, that's the thing I don't understand, is it's one thing to be like, hey, I want to see this cleaned up, and it needs to be cleaned up. And I'll even give you, that's not good enough to beat a playoff team. That if you do that stuff against the Detroit Lions, you're going to lose 38-7 or 38-28 because your offense is good enough to put up 28 points, but you ain't going to stop them. And that's what happened against Baltimore, where you lost 30-23. But the idea that it is these motivational, psychological things, when that is just completely not the case, based off every piece of available evidence, is where you absolutely lose me, sounding like a tough guy on the radio who knows way more than Joe Witt about football.
So look, can I respond? Can I respond now?
Yes.
I don't think you miss. What you said from a football standpoint, and then why you disagree with me, it makes sense. I respect what you're saying, Craig. But what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to sound like a tough guy, and I'm not trying to sound like I know more than Joe Wood. I understand the perception of how it sounds, but I understand what I'm saying is the repetition and terminology and accountability to making sure these mistakes don't continue happening is what baffles me, because Bobby Wagner is a Hall of Fame linebacker.
Who's past his prime in coverage? Like, it's a reality.
But you said something else that was key. You said because at times we want to make a better run fit or have eyes to a better run fit that may put us in a situation where there's holes between our safeties to our linebackers. But if we're in a 4-3 like we were in the fourth quarter, and we're in a set that covers all of the field or most of the field and gives our defense more of a chance to cover what we could take away or what they want to exploit, then it gives our chance for our outside linebackers to read guard to tackle and see the down block and step towards it and play and sit behind the defensive end, and allows Bobby Wagner
all right, that's
no. That's my point.
Vic, what you seem to be missing is that the other guys. Stop, Vic. Stop yelling. Please, for the love of everyone's eardrums, stop yelling. You don't get any more right by yelling louder. You just sound like a bigger goofball. The other guys get paid too. This is professional football. You're not going to win every snap. You have to win way more snaps than the other team. And by the way, that's on offense. On defense, you actually don't have to. Because if you can win one snap decisively within a drive and get a sack or a tackle for loss, then your definition of success, it's a pretty low bar, actually. If you get a sack for 5 yards on first down and 2nd and 15, you can give up 6, or now it's 2nd and 15, you can give up 6 yards twice and still get a punt on 4th down. Like, the bar is just not that high. That's the same thing, again, for, like, pass rushers, right? You win 3 times decisively in a game where you get 3 sacks. That's the game of your career. You could play 75. You're probably not going to play 75 snaps as a defensive lineman, but the O-line that you beat might. They run 75 plays, 60 plays even. You win 57 of them. 3 times you get your quarterback sacked. One of those is a sack fumble. Bad day at the office. Sports radio is not very happy on Monday. That kind of sucks. So at some point, you just have to give credence to the fact that the other guys get paid too. And the better those guys are is going to impact whether you win or whether you lose. When the Detroit Lions, you're probably going to give up 35 points playing like they played yesterday on some of those specific plays. But also, the strategy would be different because you're playing the New York Giants yesterday, and they stink. So, yes, there is some truth to what you are saying on a Tell the Truth Monday of, hey, this has got to be better against the best teams. I also think the strategy would be different, and whatever you said about down blocks isn't the answer when we're talking about coverage. That's not what we're talking about here. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. More of your calls that will probably sound very different than Vic's next on the Hoffman Show.
Here's what's trending.
It's the Hoffman Show. We are on the Team 980 and always live on the Odyssey app. The free Odyssey app, by the way. It's still free. Didn't change it just because I didn't say it one time. Just want to make sure I say it the way the bosses want. It's the free Odyssey app. And coming up, another great host that you can hear on the free Odyssey app, our pal Michael Phillips from 910 The Fan in Richmond joins us at 5 o'clock. But now more of your calls at 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. That is the Team 980 listener line where we find Doug in Richmond. Doug, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show on this Tell the Truth Monday.
Hey, Craig. Appreciate you for having me. I was really pleased with that game because I know the divisional games, you're not going to always have a dominant win like you wanted or like we fans initially wanted, but it was cool to see that they were in control. And with Brian Robinson out, I was encouraged that Cliff was staying with the run because, like, with Baltimore, he wasn't as adamant with staying on the run, with focusing on running more. And I'm glad that they gave Chris Rodriguez some run because that Baltimore game, he didn't get any reps, which I was surprised by, which that was really encouraging. And I sympathize with you, man, on the St. Juice. Like, I know you were kind of vouching for him. Like, I understand the frustration. Like, I see the frustration with fans, and I'm frustrated with him too. But they need to go out and get a corner, a number one corner, because especially if you want to contend with the Eagles of the world, who have two dominant receivers, we can't have St. Juice giving up chunks like that, even though he doesn't get beat deep too much. Or you get a premier edge rusher or add depth to the edge rushing room to help supplement the corners. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Appreciate you.
Yeah, great call, Doug. Thank you. I will say this on the idea of St. Juice against the Eagles specifically. A lot of teams haven't tried Benjamin deep. Like, when was the last time someone really threw a deep ball down the field on him, post some of the Jamar Chase and all that stuff? Eagles don't really have a lot of plays in their playbook. Like, they get one-on-ones, and Jalen is throwing them, especially if A.J. Brown is healthy. He obviously left the game kind of bizarrely yesterday, and they are a totally different team without him. That second half offensively, they did not have nearly the production they did in the first half when Brown was in the game. But, like, if he's out there, they're going to throw a one-on-one on A.J. Brown to Benjamin St. Juice when these two teams play coming up not that long from right now. So I think it is worth pointing out that, like, Benjamin has done a good job and Joe has done a good job of keeping him out of those big situations. But there also haven't been a lot of teams that have really tried him. And I'm not stupid enough to think, or naive enough to think, whatever word you want to use, to think that if it's a 50-50 ball, quote-unquote, between St. Juice and A.J. Brown, that's truly a 50-50 ball based off any kind of history with those two players. And so, specific to the Eagles, yeah, I would like to see a number one corner. The problem is number one corners don't really grow on trees, and number one corners that are available and have contracts worth trading for, those also don't grow on trees. And so I just don't know what the market is. Like, Denzel Ward getting hurt again really stinks. That was the guy that you circle and you go, that dude is competitive. That dude plays multiple schemes well. But now he's out with his sixth concussion. I don't want to trade for a guy multi-years left on his contract who just sustained his sixth concussion. And so Marshawn Lattimore, I just don't know enough about him as a dude, whether or not he fits the culture here. The good news is, like, he was at Ohio State with Terry and Noah Brown, so I'm sure that Adam might call Terry up to the office, and frankly Noah, who I think they have a lot of respect for, up to the office and be like, if this dude comes in our locker room, what's it going to be like? Because he is a big personality, that much we know. He and Mike Evans, thank God they already played the Bucs this year, because he and Mike Evans want to have a brouhaha every time they play. But, like, could he be the guy? Yeah, absolutely could be. Based off his skill level. I just haven't studied him enough to know if that skill is best applied in man situations, zone situations, what he's like in a locker room, all that kind of stuff. Because the last thing you want is to just get a name, right? William Jackson III was a good corner in Cincinnati. How'd that go here? Best name on the market. Not so much when you put him in a scheme that doesn't fit his skill set. Not so much when you ask him to do stuff he's not good at. So this is not some, like, mea culpa or whatever, saying like, hey, Benjamin St. Juice, he's actually fine. Number one, everything's great. You don't need to trade for a guy. It's just you don't want to trade for the wrong guy. And I don't know how many right guys are available between now and tomorrow, but the trades have started, so we'll see. 301-230-0980. It's a Tell the Truth Monday. Let's go to Billy in Miami. Billy, what's up?
Hey, Craig, that was fast. I've actually been trying to call for about a month now on Victory Monday. As a new season ticket holder, I told you before, we are already winners. My favorite moment each week, Craig, has been calling my friends, who I'm giving my club tickets to since I'm in Miami. I call them every Sunday pregame and get excited with them about the new culture owner experience, and I walk them through every single factor of what they need to do to have the perfect game experience. And every week, whether it's a Hail Mary, Dale Green, beating the Giants 2 times, the Commanders, Washington does not disappoint. So my truth I'm telling is that this is a winning season, and we should follow the owner, GM, and coach's lead that we take each game week by week and continue to build this generational franchise. I'm tired of hearing the commentators, including Doc, poke at everything. I'm tired of hearing each week that we aren't playing anybody good. I'm tired of hearing the next game is a trap game, and I'm tired of hearing ask whether this is a Super Bowl team. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. We might lose to the Steelers, a very good Mike Tomlin team, but we should be happy as fans and as Washingtonians that we are already winners going in the right direction. So that's my truth, Craig.
Hey, Billy, I think you probably echo the feelings of a lot of fans. A lot of people who waited a long time and are willing to wait a little bit longer to get it right and just feel good about the direction of the franchise. So thanks for the call, as always. Let's see if there's anybody in the live chat real quick as we wrap up here on a Tell the Truth Monday. Let's see. We got... I thought this was good from Alicia Fisher, was talking about some of the matchup stuff with Washington in this game and the strategies we were talking about earlier when it comes to the way this team is playing certain teams in the fronts and the personnel matching and all this kind of stuff. And she goes, some people don't understand that in this game the Giants are playing a lot of 12 and 13 personnel on the line. And the Commanders, from a schematic standpoint and a strategy standpoint, said, okay, go ahead. It's 100% correct. I decided to this week track, because I was doing the experiment I mentioned in 1st and 10, where I'm basically like, hey, did the Commanders all of a sudden decide to stop the run at some point in this game, or did it just kind of happen where they got way better as the game went? Because remember, they gave up 115 rush yards in the first quarter, and they only gave up like 40 or something after that. And it really wasn't any dramatic schematic shift. Like, they played nickel or their 3-safety nickel package, their big nickel, their buffalo, whatever you want to call it package. Actually, I got to find out what they call that. But their big nickel package for most of the game. And they kept having 6-7 in the box. And the only real time that they put base on the field, Michael Walker was out there for a little bit, was when the Giants basically went to like a goal line personnel in the middle of the field. And they did it a couple times where they were down to 1 wide receiver, they had 3 tight ends, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a heavy personnel. And so the Commanders matched, and they went 3 3 safeties, 3 linebackers. They'd move Daron Payne out to the edge and have an extra defensive tackle on the field. And the Giants actually used that pretty well. The problem is there's only so much you can do out of that formation. Like one of Daniel Jones's zone reads that was a big gain. I think it was actually a 24-yarder was out of that personnel grouping. But, like, what are you going to do? Stay in 13 personnel the entire game? No. So it's almost like a trick play in a way. There's just so many times you can run it because, like, okay, well, now we know, and now we're gonna cover things up a little differently. We're gonna call a different play defensively. So Washington really did invite the run to an extent, and the Giants are not a good running team. And so although they've been better in recent weeks with Tyrone Tracy, they were just counting on the fact that Washington or that New York was only going to be so successful. They were correct, and ultimately they win the game. 301-230-0980. Store that number in your phone. That way next time you can get in before the segment's over because, well, we're done taking calls for right now. Coming up at 5 o'clock, Michael Phillips joins us. Hey, that's just 4 minutes away here on the team at 980. Hoffman Show, hour number 2 of 2.5 today. Yes, 2.5 is it's college basketball season as of right now. College basketball is actually happening. Men's and women's games all across the U.S. right now, and Maryland's playing tonight, and we got coverage for you here on the Team 980. I'm actually live at Capital One Arena, where the Warriors will be in town to take on the Wizards tonight. That game is at 7 on Bloomberg 99.1. Right now, it is time to talk more Commanders, though, and it's time to do it with our pal Michael Phillips during today's Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Miguel, ¿cómo estás, señor?
I am literally staring at the Siegel Center, where in 2 hours, VCU will start its season against Bellarmine on 910 The Fan. That's available free on the Odyssey app, Craig, if you're keeping score.
I'm always keeping score, Michael. I am always keeping score. And, the score of the Odyssey app is that it's always free, and there's always sports there. So, if you're not already listening to us right now on it, now would be a good time to go hit the download button. Bosses, that's got to be at least $5 of a bonus for both me and Michael. At least $5. That's all I'm asking. $5.
Buddy, there's 7-2. We got easier bonus money. We don't even have to do this.
That's a good point. That is a good point. But we did it anyway, so give us $5. Okay, Michael, the way I described the Commanders' win yesterday off the top of the show was it was businesslike. They were never really stressed. They answered every moderately difficult question asked of them. How would you describe their performance yesterday against New York?
That's nice. I went with a hard hat victory. This wasn't the best performance they've had all season. This wasn't one that's going to get them on, all the highlight reels or national attention or, the awards and all those things. This was just, they played a team that wasn't as good as they were, and they beat that team. And they were told how the game was going to go by the Giants when they ran the ball over and over and over out of the gate, and they responded to that with their own time of possession drives and doing enough to make sure that they could be in a winning position. And it's just, I went big picture so much on my show today, not because the game was boring. I mean, it was a little bit boring, but just because how refreshing is it to have a coaching staff that you just fully trust to handle that situation, not freak out in that situation, take care of business in that situation.
Yeah, that was one of the points I made as well during our 1st and 10 segment was that between the just general professionalism and then, man, you want to talk about not just like, hey, they do it right, but you want the contrast. Oh, my God. What is Brian Dable doing? And what is the defensive coordinator doing? Not having his guys ready for the end of half, and then obviously Dable, the timeouts, not using them ahead of the 2-minute warning, letting Cliff Kingsbury just, hey, free pass play, buddy, you want to use it? Sure do. To see not only Washington handle their business, but to be reminded, if you will, Michael, because we've seen plenty of it over the years, how bad it can be when that stuff isn't detailed up. I think that's a great point.
It's not a given that coaches are going to know how to handle the clock. And boy, Brian Dable didn't down the stretch there. And that was one of the key differences in this game. And that produced, a turning point moment in the game. And all of a sudden, things are very different than it had been if they had just handled their business correctly. It's wild to me because the Giants, Dable comes in that first year. They look good. You say, okay, maybe the coach is holding them back. Now year 3, okay, maybe the coach is holding them back. Daniel Jones is certainly holding them back, but I don't think he's the only one. I also don't understand, Craig, why the Giants fans keep defending Daniel Jones. I'm not saying he's the problem. I'm just saying he's definitely not the solution.
Yeah, I don't get this. I don't know. Maybe we're talking to different Giants fans. Every Giants fan I know knows Daniel Jones is not very good and knows that they made a huge mistake in giving him $40 million a year. Although they kind of, they were in between a rock and a hard place. But the problem is, that's the worst place you can be. You either run into the rock or the hard place. Rock or hard place. Safer than in the middle of the two in the NFL because now they're stuck in purgatory. Now, who would want to go there? It's a mess. Although, I think the big question in New York is, you need a reset now. I think everybody knows the next iteration is coming. And I even saw a couple articles today saying that Daniel Jones is probably the next Russell Wilson and other quarterbacks who have been benched so that they don't hit injury guarantees. We can't afford to get this guy hurt and have to pay him again next year. We want to be able to cut him, so he's just going to get benched. But the question is, I think do you let Dable and Joe Shane pick the next guy or set the path forward. And I think that's the problem if you're Dable right now, is you're not actually as good as you are schematically offensively. You have not shown the discipline, the clock management, any of the head coach stuff to say that you'd belong to be anything other than an offensive coordinator in this league.
In a division that has gotten good, too. The Eagles aren't going anywhere. Say what you will about the Cowboys. There's talent on that roster, and obviously these guys speak for itself. I just love the new Giants motto, Craig. I think this is really good. Hey, did you see what the Jets did today?
I mean, you could make an argument for most of the last 50 years that has been the Giants' motto, outside of like Joe Namath and one or two other stretches where like Curtis Martin was awesome. Michael Phillips with us, mostly talking Commanders, which sometimes includes making fun of the Giants, here on the Hoffman Show. All right, Michael, I'm going to give you the same pop quiz that I gave Anthony earlier. Are you ready for this?
Oh, boy, I'll bring it on.
All right, Anthony, are you ready to see if Michael can get closer than you did on my pop quiz earlier during 1st and 10?
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, Michael, on what % of their snaps did the New York Giants blitz yesterday?
It had to have been more than half. You would never have known that by the results. So I do think it was more than half, though. They brought pressure a ton. Give me 55%.
Wow, Michael, you are clearly a more astute football observer than Anthony for sure. And frankly, for me, I would have not have guessed more than half based off of just the sheer lack of pressure. But, Michael, you are very close to correct. In fact, it was 60% of their snaps yesterday. And
game ball to the offensive line for sure. That was the first one I gave out. With Cornelius Lucas out, the kid, Colvin comes in and he's so good. I think it starts in the center with Biotish. Biotish has just been such a difference maker for these guys, putting them in the right position. And don't overlook the contribution the tight ends and the running backs have made as well, getting the chip blocks, buying that extra second when they need to. Look, I take back everything I said about the offensive line all offseason. They're good. They're legitimately good.
How much of it do you think is like these are players that have played better this season versus the ability to separate out the play calling, the situation, and the fact that the quarterback does cover for a large amount of like a large percentage of the small number of mistakes they are making?
I would love to know the answer to that, right? And that's one of the reasons we love football is it's so hard to separate out what's the quarterback, what's the team, right? Quarterback win is, of course, the most useless stat in all of football for that reason. Offensive line wins would probably be about the same. I'd love for you to get somebody smart on your show instead of me and really untangle what is going on here. Sorry. I've identified Biotish calls the protections really well, right? You pick up on that. I've identified that Jaden Daniels buys time when he needs to and processes at a really high level. And I do think very highly of this coaching staff, obviously, not just at the top level, but you go down to the position coaches. I think they're, Anthony Lynn obviously is very good at drawing up, these things as well. I don't know what's what. Whatever it is, though, is working exceptionally well.
Like, on some level, Michael, I actually think that they approach some of their problems on, like, the simplicity level that fans do, and I mean that as a compliment. Because I feel like some coaches, and we both covered them in our years of doing this, right? You were on the beat longer than I was, but I was on it long enough. It's like, oh, I got this thing, it should work. And it's like, I don't know. This guy over here seems to be the problem. What could you do? I don't know. We got to slide. We got to do this. We could do that. And it's like, Cliff goes, I think we're going to chip that guy. Like, that edge is a problem. So let's put 2 guys on him. Hey, this corner, that guy's in the way of the play. That guy's killing our outside runs. So what if we put the receiver in motion and we figured out it was man-to-man and he just follows him and now he's not there anymore? Okay. Cool, that seems like a solution. And, like, the simplicity of their solutions for this stuff, both from a pressure and a run game design. I circled one of the key plays yesterday, that RPO they ran to Jeremy McNichols with about 7.5 minutes to go, where they just run Diami in motion across the formation. And that little bit of threat of screen finally loosened up that Giants run defense, which had gotten pretty stout. They get an 8-yard gain, and all of a sudden they're off and running towards the field goal that puts them ahead for good. And so it's like these little details that it's just like if you asked someone at the high school level to be like, hey, can you figure out a solution to this problem? Yeah, this. And you might not have to think, sometimes you do have to think about second-order problems, and I'm not saying football is always this simple. But sometimes it is, and coaches way overthink stuff, and I think that's the thing I appreciate about Cliff, is specifically in the staff that he's assembled, is they clearly see problems, which helps them clearly find solutions.
I agree with all that, and I think within that is he's not obsessed with keeping 11 guys viable on every play, right? You see so many guys, all 5 skill players have to be the impact players or taking a guy out. He's not afraid to say, here's John Bates. John Bates' job is to buy the quarterback an extra half second, and I'm sure somebody in some meeting says, hang on, you just changed the math. Now it's 11 against 10, and we're at a disadvantage. And he just kind of shrugs his shoulders and says, they'll find Terry. They'll find Noah.
It doesn't matter if our quarterback is dead. Like order of operations here.
That's exactly it, right? None of this works if the quarterback doesn't make the play in the end and the guys don't make the play in the end. But just that willingness to say, we'll take a guy out of this play to buy our quarterback the extra half second. We think that's worth it on the back end, and it has been.
And by the way, the longest play I believe that they had yesterday, I'm just looking real quick. No, the Zacchaeus 42-yarder was longer. But the third longest play, Noah had a 31-yarder. When was Noah Brown's 31-yarder? I don't even remember that. Eckler's 28-yarder, which was on a 3rd and 9 in that same drive that I was just referencing. It happens on a play where Eckler chips, and then the Giants don't pick him up. They're in man-to-man, and it's like, oh, we thought he was a blocker. Nope, he releases late. And so even in those situations, they're getting big plays out of it, which you love to see. Michael Phillips, host of MP on the Mic, 10 a.m. to noon, 9:10 The Fan in Richmond, available every day on the free Odyssey app anywhere in the United States. He's with us here on the Hoffman Show for Not My Beat. Okay, the defense, Michael. In the first quarter yesterday, they gave up 115 yards rushing. That's bad. They didn't give up a whole lot the rest of the game. The Giants finished with 164. Do you look at that as a positive or a negative?
Probably negative overall, because they did transition into passing there. I don't know, if that was a deliberate thing or not, but I felt like they didn't press their advantage in the second half as much as I would have perhaps after that. I do think the positive here is these guys are really good at in-game adjustments. And your fun stat of the day here, Craig, I'm not going to make you take a quiz on it. These guys have won the coin toss in 7 of their 9 games this season. That's luck. That's not skill, by the way. That's not the DQ effect. But they've deferred every time, and the result of that is they get a better possession to start the second half than they would have get to start the first half, because these guys can process information in real time really, really well. And I think that's the positive I would take out of what is otherwise a negative stat.
That's a really interesting point about, you defer because you have the chance to double up, which they did in this game. They didn't use it. They went 3 and out on the opening drive. But the idea of we're going to have a better idea coming out of halftime, I think that's a really astute point. I don't know. This has been kind of a talking point on the show today, is I don't really mind the rushing total. Like, obviously, I want them to not give up 10 yards and then 12, and then Jones on his own read for 24. Like, I'm not saying, hey, great job, guys, nailed it. But I do think it's a strategic choice to just say, hey, New York, if you want to go on 16 play drives, be our guest. We don't think you can do it. Not more than once a game. And I think that overall, against most offenses in the NFL this year, that is a good bet to make. And so that is kind of the thing that I wonder about, is like, how viable is that against the best of the best? Is that actually a winning strategy, or is it a get to the playoffs because offenses for some reason are down in the NFL this year strategy?
Hey, we'll find out over the next few weeks, right? We're turning the page quickly into some top-notch competition. I thought the Bears were going to be top-notch competition, so I got more excited for that game than I had the right to, it turned out, because they're kind of a mess coming out of the bye. I don't know how that happened. You have a really good team, gets hot, goes into the bye, comes out of it worse than it was before. I mean, that's obviously a coaching thing, too, to a large extent. But you look at these next 3, Steelers, Eagles, Cowboys, I'm ready to learn a lot about how this team will hang in the playoffs. And what a sentence to say, right? They're 7-2. They're going to make the playoffs, Craig. That's basically a foregone conclusion at this point. How are they going to hang against those top-tier teams? Well, you got two of them coming up, and the Cowboys always give you a tough test. I'm excited to do some learning here.
No, I think that's a good point as well. The Eagles all of a sudden playing a lot better, obviously. I also wonder, though, you talk about Chicago. We've heard about the 49ers flu a couple years ago. There's a Lions flu this year. I gotta look this up. Is there a Commanders flu that is happening? Like, think about how poorly Arizona played for a couple of weeks after they played Washington. The Bengals, I don't know, they figured some things out offensively. Cleveland was bad already. The Ravens then went and lost to the Browns. Maybe that was 2 weeks later. I don't know. I got to do the math, but I do think that there's something to the Commanders have just broken a couple of teams. Like, Arizona's a fine football team. They stomped Arizona and broke their soul. And I think that goes to the kind of team this is. And, yeah, they're under-talented, and I'll ask you more about the trade deadline in a second. But the reason they're 7-2 is because they get every ounce out of what they have, and they put it into other people in a physical way that is just it has the lasting effects. At least that's what it feels like.
I agree with that. And, I'm not going to tell you the Panthers are a good football team. They're a bad football team. But I haven't noticed a lot of teams beating them by 40, Craig. That's kind of unique to these guys, right? Even when they take care of business, they do it emphatically. They do it in a way that puts people on notice. And that's part of the reason I'm excited for this Steelers game, because obviously the Steelers defense has done the exact same to people this year. I think this is the best defense in football. I think it's a Super Bowl caliber defense. On the other hand, I think these guys are playing a physical, tough style of football right now. It's a hard out for anybody, no matter how good you are. I think that makes this a fun matchup.
For sure. And, of course, by this time tomorrow, we will be past the trade deadline. However you want to answer this question, whether it's draft pick, whether it's caliber of player, whether it's whatever, how aggressive would you be? How aggressive do you anticipate Adam Peters being in the next 22 hours and change?
I think he's going to lay low. I really do. I think that as fun as this year is, and it's so much fun to say things like best record since 1996, pre-Snyder. That's incredible. It's a fun year. It's not a championship year. I keep coming back to this. Is a really good team, by the way. They can hang with pretty much anybody. This is not. You watch the Lions play. You watch that Ravens game. You watch the Chiefs play. There's another gear, another level that these guys aren't quite at yet. And that's not to say they can't get there. I think they can get there really quickly. That's to say I'm hanging on, and I'm saving all my resources, all my money, all my draft picks to really go after this thing in the next 2 years when you've got a healthy Jaden Daniels. Guys want to be here. You're going to run the free agent market this offseason. I would not jeopardize that to bring in short-term help unless it's a very favorable deal.
See, that's the thing, though, is I kind of look at this as the start of free agency. And this is kind of a new trend in the NFL that I think is smart, or at least one that's coming up a little bit more. And the Bears were in a very unique situation to take advantage of this last year because they didn't care as much about their draft pick last year because they had Carolina's pick, which turned out to be the number one pick in their franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. But the Patriots, there's talk that they might be buyers this year because it's going to be easier to acquire a player now and re-sign them than have to fight with the team in free agency in getting a bidding war, or you got a guy that's been franchise tagged and you got to give up a ton of draft capital. I kind of look at this as an opportunity to build for the future, but also build for right now. You get an extra half season out of a guy, plus you get him for the future. I'm not really interested in rentals, but I am interested in young players that I may sign otherwise next year in free agency and just have to give up an extra sixth rounder to acquire right now.
I think that's a really smart point. If you can do a deal like that comes with a long-term, a Montez Sweat-style deal, I kind of like that. I also say Adam Peters loves his draft picks, and these guys have the salary cap space to do one of those trade and dump deals where they eat somebody's salary. I'd be curious. Generally, you hear about bad teams doing that. This is the rare good team that's positioned to do that if they wanted to.
That's a good point. The thing is, I just don't know who those players are. And the fact that dudes are dropping like flies around the league. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are coming in here on Sunday, could have any of like 3 or 4 wide receivers that have been rumored to be linked to them. They almost got Ayuk. It falls apart. He resigns at San Francisco. Now he's hurt, but obviously they were in on Devontae. Now they apparently had a deal done for Christian Kirk, basically, and then he gets hurt, breaks his collarbone, out for the season, and now there is still in the wide receiver market. So with Denzel Ward going down and all these dudes around the league just dropping like flies, the available list just keeps shrinking and shrinking, which obviously makes the market more and more competitive. So could be a wild couple of hours here. Mike will be on the air live for a couple of them tomorrow, 10 a.m. to noon on 910 The Fan. Of course, down in Richmond, if you happen to be driving through the area, you can also catch it on 105.1 FM, and you can catch it anywhere on the free Odyssey app. Michael, appreciate you as always, sir, and talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. Talk to you then.
All right, it's Michael Phillips, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. We get back a speedy edition of Around the NFL before Dave Johnson joins us live on set here at Capital One Arena ahead of the Wizards and Warriors tonight. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. All right, let's quickly here go around the NFL because Dave Johnson, he's wrapping up talking to Brian Keefe right now, and then he is headed upstairs here at Capital One Arena. Well, he'll join me on set ahead of the Warriors and Wizards tonight. But Anthony, wacky day of NFL football yesterday. And by the way, my afternoon window looked like it was going to be a disaster picks-wise at one point, and then kind of got saved at the end. Dolphins and Bills. Buffalo wins on a field goal. Miami's offense really efficient in this game. Tua, I feel like, had a ridiculous box score. 25 of 28 for 2 touchdowns. He had 3 incompletions on the day, and they lost. Yikes. 61-yard field goal for the Bills for the win. They maintain their spot atop the AFC East. This one we thought could be close, Anthony. How about the Ravens dump trucking the Broncos? Like, this is the difference between a team that has a good unit that can do it sometimes and a Baltimore team that is probably still the best in the NFL and decided to remind everybody yesterday.
Yeah, again, like, it was only going to be a matter of time, but also I think that was Denver's first real test defensively. And they just proved to be, still young, still trying to develop, be on the up and up. And, the Ravens just went out there and handled business.
I mean, Bo Nix, 19 of 33, no touchdowns, a pick in the game. And Denver struggled a little bit on the ground as well. They ran 64 plays. Nix dropped back, or they dropped back. There was a trick pass in there. 34 times, ran it 30, but just couldn't get anywhere with it. Meanwhile, Lamar, 16 for 19, 283 touchdowns. Henry, 23, 106, 2 touchdowns. So much for the Denver defense being the best in football. Whoopsie daisies.
That was his 4th time having a perfect passer rating.
That's crazy.
Tied for the most.
That's crazy.
Ever.
He was the MVP last year. He's probably going to win it this year unless people get bored because he's having a better season. Chargers, so much for the Browns being good. 27-10, that's your final score there. Herbert, 18 for 27, 2 touchdowns, 282 through the air. J.K. Dobbins, another 2 on the ground. Meanwhile, Jameis Winston, 26 of 46, 3 picks for J-Mo. Whoopsie daisies.
Yeah, I was waiting for Nick Chubb to get going, and he still hasn't gotten his feet wet.
No, it's like almost like coming off of one of the most devastating knee injuries we've ever seen might take some time.
Yeah.
And having an offensive line that's not nearly as good and a passing attack that is worthless isn't very helpful. We'll see how many Cleveland Browns who played in that game played their last game for the Cleveland Browns in that game. The New Orleans Saints, yikes, bro. What I tell you on Friday, though, Saints were 7-point favorites in this game. And I was like, there is no reason the New Orleans Saints should be 7-point favorites over anyone, even the Carolina Panthers. And 7+ point dogs have been absolutely awesome this year, winning straight up. And I was like, there's no good reason for doing this other than that. Let's just follow the trend. And Anthony, mark one up in the win column for your boy, because I told you the Panthers were going to win. They did, and that was Dennis Allen's last game. He got fired.
So you want to know what's crazy, Craig?
What's that?
So I wanted the Panthers to go out there and get this dub. This was a great opportunity. I was rooting for Bryce Young. I just didn't think it would be at all possible because the Panthers stink. But guess what? They went out there and showed me wrong. And Craig, you were there at the game.
I was not there at the game.
Oh, no. Did you?
I was on my couch. I did text you the words to the fight song, but I wasn't actually there.
I was confused.
I was not actually there. I just texted you the words to the fight song. Nothing could be funner than to be in Carolina. The game wasn't actually in Carolina, but I was not there. Neither were my parents. They gave up their season tickets a long time ago. But alas, the Carolina Panthers now have the same record as the New Orleans Saints, even though the Saints won their first 2 games by a combined 64 points. They haven't won since. Raiders, 24. Bengals, 41. This was the last game as the play caller for the Las Vegas Raiders for Luke Getsy and many on the Raiders staff. Just think, Anthony, sliding doors moment of all of this season. The Raiders were not willing to go to a 3rd year on Cliff Kingsbury's contract. He then came out of that contract negotiation, poked his head up for air. Dan Quinn was like, come on over here, pal. They got the deal done. Kingsbury's here. Antonio Pierce is now fired as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that was a bonehead decision. But, it starts with their owner and comes all the way down. And I'm glad we have Cliff Kingsbury over here.
We'll see who's Raiders going on to a bye. They don't know who their play caller or their quarterback is going to be coming out of it. Minshew, 10 of 17 in this game. Desmond Ridder came in. He went 11 for 16, threw a touchdown, but only averaged 4 yards an attempt. Yikes. Cowboys, they lose 27-21 to the Falcons, but the bigger story here is they lost their quarterback. Dak Prescott out, quote-unquote, several weeks, according to Adam Schefter and others, with a hamstring injury. So I have that as not ideal. Things going from bad to worst for Dallas, who, by the way, a couple years ago, the old Cooper Rush joke that we have in the hour opener with Momo?
Yep.
Yeah. They used to have a run game, so Cooper Rush, and it was funny. Now they have no run game. Their defense is going the wrong way, and Cooper Rush is going to play quarterback for them. Yikes, bro.
Yeah, Dallas, they're looking like a dumpster fire right now.
Yeah.
Sadly.
By the way, how well am I doing on the picks straight up?
You're 6-0.
That's what I thought. What a week. Patriots, Titans. The Patriots cover here thanks to Drake May running. We really got the full Drake May experience in this one. And you got it from the last play of regulation into overtime. Last play of regulation, runs around for literally a Jaden Daniels-esque amount of time. Now, Daniels, of course, threw a Hail Mary 60-whatever yards in the air. May just throws one 20 yards as he's getting drilled. Just an incredible play to find Ramondre Stevenson for the game-tying touchdown. And then in overtime, they need a touchdown to win, and he just can't he can't be patient enough. Throws a deep ball on a third down instead of trying to find something shorter. Actually, I don't even know if it's a third down, but kind of arm punts it. And that's it, and that's all. Game-sealing interception as the Titans had already kicked a field goal on their opening possession. May probably felt rushed because that possession took 7.5 minutes off the clock. Titans 20, Patriots 17. 7-0?
7-0, Craig.
Cardinals, Bears 29-9. Is the Commanders' flu real? Man, I will say, things are falling apart in Chicago. Fast. Lose on a heartbreaking Hail Mary. Next week, you have your team captain and DJ Moore walk off in the middle of a play. If you have not seen this, Caleb is running for his life. Moore thinks the play is over and just walks off the field. Yikes. It winds up being incomplete to Keenan Allen on that play. Later in the game, the Bears are down bigly, and literally the last play of the game, Matt Eberflus says we were trying to get some work in. What they got was Caleb's ankle rolled up on. He limps off the field. And by the way, this Bears defense that had not given up 21 points in 13 straight, thanks in part to the Commanders being inept in the red zone the week before, but 13 straight gave up over 20 in the first half, including a run with 4 seconds to go of 52 yards for a touchdown. Kyler playing good ball right now, but the Bears are a disaster in the making.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the touchdown run at the end of the first half. You lose the last game, last play of the second half, and then this first half, you give up a long run. That's a bad couple of weeks.
Yeah, wacky game. Or wacky bits in Chicago. Wacky game in Philadelphia. Jags close late but can't ultimately get it done. 28-23 the final score. Jags got a cover for those that are counting. But the Eagles, Anthony, go up big in this game. They're up 22-0. Jags get a score. Ensuing drive, it looks like Jalen Hurts is tripped, legally tackled, right? Someone hits his feet. He then loses his balance, falls into his offensive lineman, Saquon on a carry does this, not Hurts. Saquon gets his foot hit, steps on an offensive lineman as he stumbles, goes down, loses the ball as it hits the ground. Ground can cause a fumble as long as you were not contacted. The refs rule whatever contact happened in the backfield was incidental or inconsequential. Inconsequential is the word, not incidental. Inconsequential. And because of that, they rule it a fumble. The Jags picked it up, ran for a touchdown. All of a sudden, it's 22-16. Like that. Eagles come back, get another touchdown. Nick Sirianni multiple failed two-point conversions. Jags get a couple, but ultimately 28-23 is the final score as the onside kick goes begging late. But I thought that was, look, I'm not looking to give the Eagles calls. It's been well documented. I hate that team. I hate the way they play offense. They annoy the hell out of me. That was a terrible, terrible call to not rule Saquon down by contact. He got his foot hit, and then he went down. That is down by contact. That is literally what the words mean.
Yeah, bad call. But Eagles found a way to pull it out. I will say, Craig, the jump hurdle that Saquon had.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Is that the single greatest open field move by the poor? It's in the Hall of Fame, right? Like the Reggie Bush step back against Fresno, like that is an all-timer. Yeah. This goes the reverse hurdle. What?
It was the reverse hurdle out of a spin move. So it was like he hit him with a three-piece combo, essentially, Craig. He stuttered, spun, and then jump hurdle. It's crazy.
Some idiot kid in high school is going to try to do that, and he's going to go to the hospital.
Oh, my gosh.
Like that, kids, literally, do not try this at home or on the road or anywhere in your life. You cannot jump backwards over other human beings. You are not Saquon Barkley. Lions 24, Packers 14. Man, Jordan Love just doesn't look right. He's clearly not healthy. He's not playing good ball. Packers, they keep making games closer late, and you're like, where is this earlier in the game when the game is competitive? But ultimately, the Lions, just way too much. 17-point explosion in the second quarter. They continue to be the top seed and best team in the NFC. Rams went on absolutely wild ones. Seahawks were up early. Geno couldn't stop throwing it to the other team. Rams ultimately win on a walk-off in overtime, 26-20, in a game where Puka Nacua punched a dude, got thrown out. That was a bad fantasy alert to get. Your wide receiver, Puka Nacua, no longer playing because he got ejected for punching a dude. Puka, no punching people.
Yeah, that was wild. Uncharacteristic. But I was still surprised the Rams were able to do what they did in the second half without him. Like, Matthew
Cooper Kupp's still ridiculous.
Yeah, he is. Yes,
Sean McVay, still good at his job. Stafford, still good at his job. Kyron Williams, good at his job. Geno, forgot which team is employing him. Got to throw it to the guys that are wearing the same jersey as you, bro. Not good. Speaking of way too many turnovers, the Vikings-Colts game. What a weird one this was. Z had the turnover, the pick in the end zone. That's great. Love that for Zaire. But unfortunately, they couldn't get the ball in their own end zone. No catches by Colts in their own end zone in this one. Flacco, 16-27, 179, 14.6 QBR. That's bad. Jonathan Taylor, just 13 carries for 48 yards. After he had a couple of nice ones early, but the Vikings really shut it down. Meanwhile, Darnold, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Justin Jefferson also had a pass in this game on a 3rd and long to get them a conversion on what I believe was eventually a scoring drive. Jefferson, 9 targets, 7 catches, 137 in the game. That is how you get it done. And the Vikings are 6-2, sitting just behind the Commanders in the NFC. Anthony, I didn't go perfect, did I?
You got one game wrong.
Which was the Cardinals-Bears?
Yes, sir.
Sheesh.
You had a hell of a week, Craig.
I did well. I did all right against the spread. Tony's had 2 back-to-back double-digit wins against the spread.
See, you two, I need to take notes. Clearly.
What'd you do, Anthony?
I won 10-3.
That's a good week.
Respectable, But 12-1, like you already have. How many games are? You already have a 2-game lead on me, so.
I make it 4. We're both on the Chiefs tonight?
Yes, sir.
All right, Chiefs, Buccaneers, the final one tonight. And that is a 9-point spread as we sit right now ahead of KC and Tampa tonight. Oh, look who it is. Dave Johnson making his way to the table as we're live at Capital One Arena. We'll talk Wizards, Warriors before our pick 6 at 6 next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube where everybody look. It's Dave Johnson.
Yes, on YouTube. Streaming, you're all over the place. And again, your interviews that you put on YouTube, just fantastic.
Thanks, sir.
Someone we of course, give credit, but if you go to Wizards Radio 24/7 or WizardsRadio247.com, you can hear some of Craig Hoffman's interviews. That's where we roll. You can find content everywhere.
That's where your home for the Wizards is 24/7. You just get Dave all the time. What more can anyone want in life? Fresh off the trip to Mexico City, where the rookies continue to play incredibly well, basically leading one of the three of them, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, leading many of the NBA's categories amongst rookies. When you look at Keyshawn, though, what has impressed you the most about him? Because I think he's the surprise because he's the last of the three. It's very easy to be overlooked when you're the mid-20s pick compared to two lottery guys. What has impressed you so far about Keyshawn George?
Well, I think it speaks to what Brian Keefe and what we're going through right now is these players have the freedom and they feel it. And at one point, and I think it was Saturday night, although as I go through customs, I also lost my memory. Somehow I didn't check my memory. But at one point, he was 2 for 9 shooting. What that tells me is he wasn't afraid to take 9 shots. And see, that's what people have to remember. And I think about, and I'm getting off track here a little bit, but you think about Johnny Davis, where we're seeing him now, much more confidence, whereas in his rookie year, it's taken him longer. He was basically passing the ball before it even reached his hands. Where the rookies, all of them, including Keyshawn George, look, his defense, he's relentless. He's coming up with steals. This is an athletic league now. And so, if you can have George bring the ball up and Alex Sarr bring the ball up, it's not the basketball that even we grew up with where that's the guy who's the point and he handles the ball and he shoots and he does this. That's not basketball now.
Yeah, it's the positional flexibility. And nice to talk about that with the Warriors in town tonight because they're, I don't want to say the team that invented it, but they're the team that has mastered it. That prime of their dynasty was built on the fact that all 5 guys could do everything at all times. And by the way, you had 2 guys who could do one thing, put the ball in the basket better than anyone else in the history of the league. But when you look at Sarr, you've seen so many rookies come through here, so many great defensive players come through over the year, both home and away. What is it about the production is there in terms of shot blocking? What is it about the way he defends where you go, oh, that's different, that's how he's able to do it, or something that gives you maybe even hope beyond the numbers long term?
Well, some of those blocks were against some guy named Bam Adebayo. And he had 4 blocks on Saturday night, obviously the numbers, and he puts them in a category of rookies, including David Robinson and Shaquille O'Neal, most blocks to start their career. That's a pretty good category.
Not
bad to be put into. But it is how, he uses his body and how he adapts, because he's got a body to use, quite frankly, in terms of the athleticism, the length. But just having it doesn't mean you know how to use it. And I think about he got 2 fouls early, yet he didn't foul out. And so that tells me that he's learning as the game is going on. This is his first time seeing a Bam Adebayo. So he's adjusting. He knows what Bam's doing. That's the other part of this entire rookie class is, yes, we always love to talk about before draft. It's broken down, all these terms, athleticism, length, da-da-da. But up here, that's the cerebral. And for those of us, I pointed to my head for the YouTube, but for the
radio audience,
I'm pointing to my head. It's that really is the difference of do you succeed or not succeed in the NBA, because again, I know I'm redundant just saying how talented these guys are, how scouted they are, so they've got to be smart. And Alex Sarr and all of them are showing that they've got that stuff like athleticism and toughness we like to talk about, but they have what we don't see, and that's the smarts.
You can go to any AAU tournament and see a lot of athletic kids.
Yep.
The ones that are going to eventually make it to the league, like that, it is the up here mental part of it. And I think Will and obviously Michael understand that. Their scouts that they have now understand that, and it's really cool to see that kind of coming through on the court. Dave Johnson, as if the voice doesn't just self-identify immediately, with us here live from Capital One Arena here on the Hoffman Show. Again, tonight we have Maryland hoops here on the Team 980. So Bloomberg 99.1 is where you will find Wizards and Warriors. Pregame 6:45, tip-off at 7:15. We're still awaiting word on whether Steph Curry is going to play. And it was funny, I was talking to my wife earlier today, and she goes, are you going to stay for the game? Sometimes I do the show here, and I get out pretty quick after listening to you guys on the way home. I might wind up texting you during the broadcast because I'm listening. But she goes, are you going to stay? And I go, Yeah, I think I'm going to stay for a while, at least tonight, because I frankly don't know how many more times, not that Steph is on the verge of retirement, but we just don't know. Like, this is a guy that is still doing it at such a high level this late in his career. Do you have a favorite Steph Curry story that comes to mind, of whether it's a moment that you've gotten to call when he's facing the Wizards, or a story that you've heard just being around the league? Is there a favorite Steph story?
You know, I right away, one does not come to mind, only because we, to your point, we only play them twice a year.
Sure.
Thankfully, twice a year. Having said that, I think just the knowing, Davidson like I do, because I'm getting off track here, but I covered college soccer in the 90s, and Davidson is not a basketball school. It's a great school. If you want to make a lot of money in life, go to Davidson, but not to play basketball
unless you're Steph Curry.
He'll be a chief executive somewhere, but that's where we first discovered, or first learned about, or could realize what his potential was. So I just think it gets back to what we were just talking about. Why do people make it in the league? Is the fact that he's Del Curry's son help? Well, not so much the DNA as the smarts, as we're talking about. How do you produce like he produces on that consistent level, where the whole league has not been able to figure him out unless you're smart? And that to me is why people are going to come tonight. Quite frankly, wanting to see Steph, not knowing because. And that's why we don't know. Look, he's played 3 games, but he's not going to take 40 off and then pick up. He's going to pick up at some point. Maybe it'll be tonight. He was out there shooting around, from what I understand earlier today. He shot around yesterday. Is the theory, all right, let's get him a little bit of mileage on the road here. So it's possible he'll play tonight. But what scratches your head about the Warriors, they're dealing with an injury to Steph Curry, but Buddy Hield is leading. You got Buddy Hield who can score, is leading in scoring, and they're 5-1, so they're still getting it done. But it's what excites me is it's just like the other night against Miami. That was clearly a step up, with all due respect, from Atlanta. Right. The Wizards lost that game because they didn't make as many shots as Miami did, and that's no embarrassment in terms of losing 118-98. The Heat made their threes, the Wizards did not. But if you look at some of the numbers inside the game, it's what we wanted, the Wizards
especially
competing.
The young guys. Yeah.
Especially the young guys. And our friend Chase Hughes tweeted out something, and he's great at looking at his in advanced stats. The Wizards right now are 5th in the NBA in getting open threes. That's an impressive stat. Now, their percentage needs to be higher. They're only shooting 35% in getting open threes. But what it says is they're doing something right offensively and how they're working the ball around. 5th in the NBA in getting open threes in a league where you better get some open threes. Now you got to make some threes. Right. Make a few more on Saturday. It's a closer game.
It's funny because a stat like that could be looked at one of two ways. Either that's good offensive process, or it's like, maybe they're just continually finding the guy who's open for a reason. But the thing is, like right now, that guy is Alex Sarr, but they're working on it so that eventually teams are going to go, oh no, Alex Sarr's open for 3, and that is a multi-year process. And I think the fact that he's continually taking them right now. Like, he's not scared. To your point about Keyshawn George the other night, they're not afraid.
No, and they'll make threes, and they will. And they know. And the guy who never got going the other night, Corey Kispert, he will make threes. So, to your point, you're right. Does that mean the guy's open for a reason? No, these were guys that can make threes, and it would have been, I'm not saying a different result, but certainly a different scoreline.
Sure, and especially for a guy like Corey, who's one of the best in the league. All right, I know you just talked to Brian Keefe. If folks want to hear that, 6:45 is the pregame over on 99.1, Bloomberg 99.1, your home for the Wizards. Tonight, of course, Team 980, typically your home for the Wizards, which is where we have Dave Johnson with us each and every game day. Dave, always a pleasure. Great to see you in person.
Well, and it's great to see you in person. We're going to get a better... I mean, not this is bad, this backdrop, but we're gonna.
We did have a really nice Wizards display behind us last time.
And, we'll get that. I'll get that sorted out.
Okay,
I'll get that
Dave's
sorted
on it. When we get back to the football, it is our pick
back
6
to the football.
at 6 next.
Did the Commanders win?
I heard they did. Oh, yeah, we're live at Capital One Arena, where tonight the Wizards and Warriors are going to do battle. We still don't know if Steph Curry is going to play. Anthony, you haven't seen anything, have you?
I have not seen anything just yet.
And keep refreshing Twitter. If Dave didn't know, then nobody knows. But I do believe that Steve Kerr just spoke to the media or is speaking with them very, very, very recently, or he's speaking basically now. So doors are open here at Cap One. We're outside section 106, 107 if you want to come say hello. We're on the air until 6:30 when we give way to Maryland Hoops here on the Team 980. But we do this each and every Monday. It is time for our Pick 6 at 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level, and build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
All right, so we pick 6 players on Fridays that we think are going to be the most important to the Commanders game. In this case, we actually started with a couple of giants, including
Number 1,
Dexter Lawrence. How about this? The Commanders faced 19 pass rushes from Dexter Lawrence. They allowed 0 pressures. That is the first time this season, Anthony Haney, that Dexter Lawrence has 0 pressures in a game.
Yeah, it seems that 2 of his quietest games of the season have been against the Washington Commanders. I mean, we talking about a guy that came into this week anyway, leading the NFL in sacks. And for us to go out there and limit him, basically, again, make him a non-factor, I think that you got to tip your hat to the offensive line. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. But, everybody coming into the season had so many, questions about how this offensive line was going to hold up. We didn't really make any splash moves. But Tyler, to be honest, man, he's playing like a top 5 center. And I don't have the numbers and metrics, but he's out playing some of the centers I know that get paid more than him. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and they signed him on a 3-year deal. So, sorry, Tyler, you're not getting repaid for a long time. He's playing his face off. He owns Dexter Lawrence, for whatever it's worth. I feel better saying that without jinxing anything now. But, he's been playing him for years. He's never allowed a sack against him. It's pretty impressive stuff from that Washington offensive line in general. And they held the team that had led the NFL in sacks and still does lead the NFL in sacks to 0. As for the other giant that we had circled,
Number 2,
Malik Neighbors. He got going a bit in the second half, and I thought they do a good job with him. Just to be blunt, one, he's very easy to do a good job with because he's really, really good. And they make sure that they get him some targets. But whether it's key situations, that 4th and 2, I feel bad for St. Juice there. That's a terrible call on the spot. BSJ was all over him, kept him short of the line. They give it to him, whatever. But they get him on one of those crossing routes. They hit him a couple times off play action where they were able to suck the linebackers in. But ultimately, Neighbors never gets loose. That one was the longest one, 9 for 59. Was the number for Neighbors. And considering he had 15 catches for 100 million yards in the first one, they kept everything short. If you want to hit quick comebacks, fine, you can have your yards, but don't break a tackle, don't get the big one, and they contained him on the big one, and that's a big reason why they won the game.
Yeah, and I think also in the first matchup, we just missed too many tackles, which was why he was able to run after the catch. In that first matchup. But, yeah, we came up. We were short tacklers. That's what we wanted to see out of this defensive unit. And, I tip my cap to these guys, man, even though I still have my questions.
Yeah, you got to give it to him. Sainer, it's funny because everyone loves Mikey, and we love Mikey. He was on the show last week. Great dude. But he gets beat the same amount of time as Benjamin. The problem is neither of them's the number 1 corner. So we'll see what Adam Peters does in the next, what are we at, 21 hours and 55 minutes before the trade deadline. Of course, we'll have full coverage tomorrow here on the Team 980. Number 3, please.
Number 3.
Dorrance Armstrong. He had a couple big pressures in this game. One of them gets wiped off the board because he winds up hitting Daniel Jones in the head. I'm not going to lie, Anthony, I'm big protecting the quarterback, and there's a couple hits yesterday, the Brian Branch hit, that wasn't on a quarterback. The fact that you got people like Ryan Clark, and I love RC. I think he's one of the best analysts that we've ever seen on television talking football. But he is a defensive player defending defensive players. That was such an ejectable hit. Dude just launches with his head right into another dude's head. You can't use your helmet as a weapon. Like, we're protecting people's brains here. Yeah. I am pro protecting players the best we can. I'm also pro, hey, if you're a defensive end, you can't, not Ed Too Tall Jones. Maybe it was Ed Too Tall Jones. You used to club dudes.
Oh, Deacon Jones.
Deacon Jones, that's right. Yeah, Deacon Jones used to, got my 1970s defensive end Joneses mixed up. Deacon Jones used to just slap dudes in the head. We can't be doing that. That's not okay. Putting your arms up and running into a guy, that should be allowed. I didn't like that call on Dor. It's the correct call. I think that's one that we can change the rule on.
Yeah, I think they've made this league such a quarterback league, quarterback friendly. They're going to do everything they can to protect it. And I think it was a little, a little soft, but it is what it is. Outside of that, I still think he had a good game. I saw that he was the second highest rated defensive player for the team. And maybe his rating came down a little bit because I think he was the defensive end on Daniel Jones' first big run on the read option.
I don't remember. That would have been his side. I'd have to go back and watch it. But, I mean, overall, the zone read is something that they got better at throughout the game. Yep. They were more definitive in forcing Jones to hand off, and they trust things inside. They got one that was like a 10-yard gain that was a zone read that he gave it. But by and large, like, they did a good job. They rushed well. I mean, Jones, there's only so much that offense does, and they did a good job. Dorrance played well. For sure. All right, number 4 in our pick 6 at 6.
Number 4.
We had at number 4 Austin Eckler, who we picked because we knew that Brian Robinson might not play, but we also knew that the Giants' run defense was bad. And Eckler kind of got back to being more of Eckler in this game, and it's something to watch, I think, moving forward. If B-Rob is out, I think Chris Rodriguez becomes the number 1 guy in terms of being like the down-to-down back, based on how he played yesterday. He's the most direct substitution. But at the same time, like, you got to make sure you get Eckler his touches. And there's a couple times where he just comes up big as a receiver, and he has obviously the big play on 3rd and 9 on the second to last drive of the game, where he gets 28 yards. He's got another screen that goes big. Like, just getting him the touches, and he's kind of the piece. Here's how I put it. The offense works because you threaten every blade of grass at all times, and when he's on the field, he is such a threat to show up somewhere funky that it really emphasizes that.
Yeah, he's so electric. The splash plays that he's had, I think one of the plays you were forgetting to mention, he had like a 20-yard inside zone or right up the gut kind of run.
Yep.
So he had some huge explosives yesterday. And I think on the Chris Rodriguez front, it was interesting to see that they actually did turn him on the last drive of the game.
Sure did.
Game is on the line, and we're giving Chris Rodriguez, who just got elevated, the ball in the fourth quarter, game on the line. So I think that was definitely something interesting. And he went out there, he carried, I think, what 52 yards?
Yeah, 52 yards, averaged 4.7 a carry. Had a heck of a game. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980 going through our pick 6 at 6. And, Anthony, have you looked at Terry McLaurin's stats from yesterday's game?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you know that he didn't have more than 20 yards receiving.
Nope.
That is the loudest 20 yards any dude will have in NFL history, what Terry McLaurin did yesterday. He was our number 5.
Number 5.
And a couple of touchdowns. Just, I got to confirm with you as my person who's in the loop on all things. The mask, scary. That was a scary Terry moment, right? Pull the mask down. Boo, Deonte Banks, who suddenly wasn't talking anymore. Weird how he wasn't talking anymore. And I think it continues to reinforce / cement the mantra that Cliff Kingsbury talks about all the time. Players, not plays. And in big moments, red zone, end of half, who's they're going to? Terry McLaurin. The matchups were better other places, so Noah Brown winds up being the leading receiver on the day. They get Diami the catches, but big spots, red zone, end of half. Where's Jaden looking? He's looking at 17, and that's a really good place to look.
That dude's 17. When it comes to contested catches, Craig, I'll never truly understand it. It's not like Terry's the biggest guy.
No.
But
he has the biggest heart, and that seems to matter.
He just always seems to be able to make the big play, the biggest moment. And he got the last laugh against Deontay. 2 receptions, 2 touchdowns on just 3 targets. And he didn't necessarily even need to have a big outing just because we had so much success on the ground, or, we were able to hit people for screens.
Tough, and he's willing, and all that kind of stuff. There are points where Terry's blocking is let's call it wavered at times. I think it has been better and better and better and better over the course of the last couple of weeks as he has really bought in and probably been coached up. Like, there's probably some stuff where Bobby Ingram's been able to say, or maybe Bobby Johnson, like, who knows which coach it is, has been like, hey, hit this block this way. And it's continued to be more effective for him as a blocker. He was always willing. He's just gotten better at the actual skill of it. All right, last but not least, actually not last, because we have an honorable mention this week in our Pick 6.
Number 6.
All right, Frankie Louvu, who was impactful in this game. There was a play in the second quarter, where New York goes on that big, long 16-play drive.
Yep.
And they come out the next drive to start. 6:15 to go, and they run an RPO, and Louvu crashes. And so Daniel Jones is like, oh, there should be a throwing lane there. Let me throw behind him. Louvu gets up, tip ball. All of a sudden, they're in 2nd and 10. Zone read for 2 yards, 3rd and 8. Incompletion. Jeremy Chin on the pass breakup. 3 and out. Just like that. And it's those kinds of impact plays, from some of the pressures to some of the big hits to some of the batted balls, like Frankie Louvu. I don't think this was his best game by any stretch of the imagination, but he just continues to find ways to make plays, and that's what you're paying that dude for.
Yeah, I also love his energy and effort. He jumped off sides yesterday, and I wasn't even mad, Craig, because he's done a great job all season long anticipating, the quarterback's count. And then, being able to jump him. They were being smart for once. And they got him. So I just love his energy, his effort, and we'll always appreciate that.
For sure. And honorable mention. We don't have the big voice guy saying honorable mention. That would be fun if we did. We don't. But Anthony, you wanted to make sure that we got Brandon Coleman in there on Friday, because we got the injury report, and last second you're like, hey, he's going to have to play the whole game. Wow. PFF 89.2 pass block grade for Brandon Coleman. He played 62 total snaps, and most of his career, percentage-wise, obviously 100%. And he allowed 0 pressures against Brian Burns. Not only that, he continuously made Burns a complete non-factor in this game. Brandon Coleman was awesome. And I've definitely seen some of the O-line nicks on Twitter being like, hey, it looks like not only did the Commanders get their quarterback of the future in this draft, they might have gotten their left tackle of the future as well. It's a pretty good start for the Adam Peters era.
Good? Oh, my gosh, Craig. Such an understatement. That is insane.
Yeah.
Allworth left tackle and your franchise QB? Man.
And there's still going to be goobers on the internet who will leave comments like, oh, I would have taken – I can't believe they didn't take a tackle in the 2nd round. Well, Johnny Newton continues to play well. That's the guy they did take. And they might have gotten a better dude in the 3rd round than other teams took in the 2nd. Which is not to say that no one's allowed to criticize Adam Peters ever. Just know if you do that it might come back to make you look very silly in the long run. All right, it's the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. We're live from now a very busy suddenly Capital One Arena ahead of the Wizards and Warriors tonight. And I got good news for you in your Steph Curry jersey. It does look like Steph is playing tonight. So he's been questionable. It does look like Curry's going to play tonight, which is going to make a lot of folks happy here at Cap One. And honestly, Anthony, I want to talk about this next. I think it's going to make the Wizards happy too, because I think this is a team that doesn't mind a challenge. So let's talk about the game that we are on hand here to see tonight next. But first, let's get an update on the latest in the world of women's sports presented by Wawa. Gotta have a Wawa. We're live at Capital One Arena here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. We are just about, 23 minutes away from pregame over on Bluebird 99.1 for Warriors and Wizards tonight. Again, Steph Curry making his return to the lineup tonight for the Warriors. Meanwhile, here on the Team 980, we are about 8 minutes away from giving you Maryland Terrapins pregame as they get their season started tonight. Johnny Holiday and company on the call. But with Curry playing tonight, Anthony, I'm actually really excited because it's a chance to see, I think Bub Carrington's probably, part of you has to go, oh, no, I got to deal with that guy. I got to deal with that monster. But if you're a competitor, especially where you are in your career right now, if you're Bub Carrington, you're Keyshawn George, you're Alex Sarr, I think you're excited to play Steph Curry. Let's go, bring it on. Not that you necessarily are yeah, we're gonna win. I'm not saying being arrogant about it, but you want to measure yourself against the best. And so I'm excited to see how those guys compete against a guy who is one of the most unique challenges, not just in the current league, but in the history of the league defensively.
Yeah, I think as we see LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, as we see these guys get older and older, and we see the young guys that are 17 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old, coming to the NBA. I think they circled these kinds of games on their calendar just because these were the guys when they were 4 years old, 5 years old, they were just now entering the NBA.
It's crazy.
Before their primes and things of that nature. So they literally have seen their entire career, and now you're in a situation where you can play against a guy like Steph Curry. Oh, my gosh. I know they're excited.
Hold on. What year is LeBron in? 20? 21? 22?
22.
How many dudes in the league were not born when LeBron started playing? That's gross.
A decent amount.
That's insane. All these 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds old, they literally weren't born when LeBron started. Anthony, when did we get this old? Anyway, apropos of none of that. I think the other thing, too, about the Warriors specifically, Dave mentioned this when he was with us an hour ago, or 30 minutes ago. They are, they're well-coached. Their offense is a nightmare to defend. They run around all over the place, especially when Curry's out there. But Buddy Hield's awesome. Draymond setting screens, and they're doing all that stuff. And then you got all the people that learned from Draymond over the years. They got Kuminga cutting backdoor and Moses. They got dudes running all over the place. You have to be locked in on the details. And against a team like Miami, the Wizards proved that they were not quite up to that challenge. Against the Hawks, it's one thing, but that's where their 2 wins go. And so to face this higher level of competition, I think this is probably great in terms of the test of the Brian Keefe of it all. Can you get your guys to lock in on the details? Because if you miss a detail, you miscommunicate one screen, and it's Steph Curry, 3 points. Buddy Hield, 3 points. The level of demand is just so much higher against the greats, and not great player Curry, great shooter Hield, great passers, some of the guys that they have. And so I think this is, as you introduce these young guys to the league, and a guy like Sarr, who, he's doing tremendous blocking shots, doing all kinds of great stuff, can he be as good showing on the pick and roll versus just swatting shots at the rim? That's how you become a great defender in this league. The reason Bam is not because he blocks a lot of shots. It's because if you get a switch or a show or whatever, he executes the details at an extraordinarily high level. And so I do think that tonight for Curry, or tonight for Sarr, tonight for George, tonight for Bub, it's always a really tough thing. I think the other thing, the obvious storyline in this game is, it's Jordan Poole versus the Warriors. Oh, by the way, we almost forget that. What's the level that Jordan Poole can continue to play at, considering he's been excellent this year? Where all of a sudden, hey, by the way, the team that caused you all that hurt, the team that derailed your career, that guy, Draymond, sitting over there. It is what it is, man. And I hope that he can continue to just be I've moved on. Last year he said it. I don't know how real it was. It was hard. He talked about that with us in the preseason in our interview. But I think that for Jordan tonight to just continue to do what you're doing, say what's up to your friends, don't acknowledge your enemies, and keep going. I'm excited to see what his game looks like tonight.
Yeah, I think he could have a big night just because I think he's grown. He's matured. into, a young leader on the team, and it's shown in his play as well on the court. So we've seen, budding stars go out there and have huge nights against their former teams and things of that nature. So if it's in his cards, if it aligns like that, I think he's definitely going to try to make the most of the moment. But going back to what you were saying about the rookies in terms of, paying attention to the details, Golden State forces you to think. Like, it took the NBA 3 to 4 years to, finally catch up to some of the actions that they were doing. So I think this is going to be a good test for the young guy for sure.
No doubt about it. Expect to see Andrew Wiggins probably tonight. He's officially listed as a game-time decision, but he played in their last game against the Houston Rockets. Obviously, Draymond's still around. Pajemski played 38 minutes in that game. So interesting. That's coming off an overtime game, but it was a couple of days ago. Jonathan Kuminga had a nice one last time out. For the Wizards on the injury front, you got Bagley out tonight, Kuzma out tonight as well. So we'll see when those guys make their return. 30 seconds left. Yes, Anthony? Just making sure I remember the right number. Okay. 30 seconds to tell you that Maryland basketball is coming up next here on the Team 980. Of course, we are your home for the Terps, which pushes the Wizards over to Bloomberg 99.1. We'll be back tomorrow with our usual Tuesday, including a visit from Mitch Tischler. Take command tomorrow, Logan and I, into the film breakdown. I got the film right here. I'm going to go finish watching it. So that's tomorrow. That's all for today. Terps next on the Team 980.